Welcome to the latest episode of the California Apartment Association's Vidcast. Today we're going to talk about a number of important news stories affecting the rental housing industry here in California. This includes the enforcement of AB 1482, or the California Tenant Protection Act of 2019. Also, CAA's involvement in a court case in New York City challenging the rent control law there, and a couple of local stories out of South Pasadena and San Diego. Let's get started with the enforcement of AB 1482. As you may know, 1482 passed back in 2019, and it places a limit on rent increases of 5% plus the change in the consumer price index, or 10%, whichever is lower. And this applies to most of the rental housing in California, generally to housing when it turns 15 years old, unless it's already covered by a local rent control law. It also has just cause for eviction provisions. So California's Attorney General Rob Bonta, who while in the Assembly was one of the co-authors of AB 1482, has been investigating a property manager and developer in the Silicon Valley who is accused of raising the rents for some of the tenants by upwards of 151%, far beyond what's allowed under AB 1482. This company is also accused of wrongful eviction. Last week, the Attorney General's office announced a settlement in this case that's resulting in the defendant having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. This was the first time the Attorney General's office has enforced AB 1482, but Bonta has said in the press that it won't be the last time. So this is a clear reminder of the importance of understanding AB 1482 and complying with this legislation. Luckily, on our website, we have a page dedicated to AB 1482, and that page includes a plethora of compliance materials, including a background paper and a widget that property owners can use to determine if their property is subject to the rent cap under AB 1482. And we have a recently updated calculator that landlords can use to determine the maximum rent increase for the year allowed under AB 1482 based on the location of their property. And this has to do with the change in the CPI for that area. So we urge all rental property owners to brush up on AB 1482. Make sure you visit our site, use the calculator to make sure you know how much you can raise the rent without violating AB 1482. Now let's change gears a bit and discuss a high-profile property rights case on the East Coast that could have implications across the country, including here in California. The case, Community Housing Improvement Program versus the City of New York, challenges New York's rent control law as an infringement on the constitutional rights of property owners in the city. CAA, along with the San Francisco Apartment Association, one of CAA's chapters, filed a friend of the court brief urging the U.S. Supreme Court to take up this case, which could shape the future of property rights legislation across the country. This is especially important here in California, where we've seen a significant push for stricter rent control laws over the past few years. Moving on to local issues, down in South Pasadena, the City Council was considering a proposal that would limit the ability of landlords to retake possession of a rental unit to perform substantial remodeling work. Now, CAA argued that this proposal would inflate the costs of necessary rehabilitation work, that it would deter needed upgrades, and make housing in South Pasadena even less affordable. After hearing from CAA, the South Pasadena City Council decided to take more time to study the issue and allow for a more thoughtful approach. And finally, let's talk about San Diego. On June 24th, just a few days from now, the city will begin enforcing a new just cause for eviction ordinance. CAA has put together various compliance materials and will be holding a webinar that goes in depth on the new just cause law on June 27th. This webinar will go over the new law's just cause and buyout provisions, forms to comply with the ordinance's mandatory notice requirements, and optional exemption forms for certain properties. Thanks for joining us for today's vidcast. Until next time, be sure to visit our website, caanet.org, or to go directly to our news page, visit caanet.org/news.